Konnichiwa and welcome to episode 22, part 6 of Building the Bathroom. In this episode, we install the bathtub and build out frames for walls, floors, doors and window frames. We also put up the plasterboard. The wet room is really starting to take shape. This is where we left off last time. In this episode, we're working on the next stage of the main structure of the room. We're also starting work on the floor of the other areas. To give you a better idea of how we imagine the bathroom to look when we've finished, I've made a 3D drawing. In front of the wet room we have a sink, and to the left of it we have the laundry area. The door next to the sink leads through to the kitchen and the opposite door to the bedroom. In this episode, we'll be building out those walls around the wet room itself. But first, we're starting on the other areas. We're opening up the floor in the area where the sink will be positioned to allow space for the pipes. Next, we start installing the floor frames. You'll remember we previously did this in the bedroom. We want the floor to be completely flat throughout the entire house, so we're raising the level of this floor to be exactly equal to that of the bedroom. We're following the same process as last time, measuring the height of the floor at various points around the room using the laser, and then adjusting the height of the floor frames using small pieces of wood. The original floor in this room was very uneven and so required a lot of adjustments. Ichi has made the level of the floor inside the wet room lower than that of the other areas. That means that we'll have a step down into the wet room, and that step is what Ichi is making here. We've done this so that we don't end up with water flowing out of the wet room into the other areas. Our next task was to install the bath, and we started out by adding lots of insulation to the inside of the cinder block surround. We're not sure how much benefit this will have, but we figured it's better than nothing. We used an insulating urethane foam spray in the small spaces. And then we slotted the bathtub into position.
Stop. You all right?
Yeah. A little bit heavy.
Huh?
A little bit heavy.
Heavy?
You'll remember that the man from the gas company has already attached the hot and cold water in pipes to the bathtub. So we need to feed those through the access tunnel that we've made.
Okay. Will be one leg, okay?
Okay.
As much as you can go over
This
there.
way?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you do that? What? Shall we switch?
Yeah, if we can switch places, I think it's better.
せーの。Focus on. Did you do that?
Yeah.
Little bit this way.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Okay. Okay, I've got it.
can you stand here or pull? 들어가죠?
Maybe I should go back to the other side. What do you think?
Okay, you can go.
Yeah? Have you got it?
Yeah.
This side?
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Push. You can.
Okay?
Yeah.
I'm going to put this side down first.
Yeah.
And then,
Just take off your hands, finger.
okay. Yeah.
Come here.
Your side?
Could you pull up?
Yeah.
Up, up.
Yeah.
Could you pull up?
More? Yeah.
Pull up. Up as much as you can. Don't go open. Up, up.
Okay. Getting heavy?
Okay, go over there. Go over there.
And then we position the bath, making sure the little legs were in the correct place on the stands.
Too much.
Too much.
Good, good. Good. Like this.
A final check ensured that the bath was level and comfortable. Even though the bath was correctly positioned, it had a very slight rock if you put too much weight on the side. So Ichi had an idea to use the foam spray under the lip to stabilise it. We haven't seen anybody else doing this, but it seemed like a good idea. Oh, that's a lot on this side. This foam expands and then goes hard. Once it was dry, the bath was so solid. With the bath in, we could start putting up wall studs. The pink spray had made the bath very stable, but had also created a big mess, which was very difficult to get off. We're finding that every single task with this bathroom, even the seemingly small ones, take a great amount of time to complete. But when they are completed, the results are pretty good. Next we put caulking around the bath. This is actually the first of several layers of caulking that we'll do as part of the waterproofing system. Ooh, that's a good job. Well done, Ichi. We've bought a very heavy glass door for the wet room, and we want to make sure that the hinges are anchored into something strong, i.e. not plasterboard. So Ichi is attaching a thick piece of wood to the pillar, which will end up being flush with the walls. This will form part of the door frame and the hinges will be screwed directly into it. Next we put up the blocking which we'll nail the plasterboard to. We were careful to keep the bottom piece of wood off the floor, so if any water does manage to break through our waterproofing system, which we'll talk through in a later episode, it won't soak up into the wall. Next up was the window frame. We needed to make it deep enough so that it sits flush with the finished level of the wall. We didn't have a good quality piece of wood wide enough to make the window frame, so we've made something out of plywood. We were quite worried about the strength, particularly in such a wet area, but we think once we've waterproofed it properly, it should be fine. Very good. All right. Perfect. After 3 times. The key consideration with our blocking was how close do we want the finished tiled wall to be from the bathtub? And the answer is close enough that we can put a nice amount of caulking. Working backwards from the outside of the wall to the inside, the tile, glue, waterproofing membrane and plasterboard totals about 25 millimeters in thickness. The additional gap between the bathtub and our wall studs has dictated how thick our wall blocking is. That gap size is actually different on all 3 walls, which is why we've used different thicknesses of wood on all 3 walls. When we put up the blocking on this wall, we noticed that the pillar is not straight. It touches at the top and there's a big gap at the bottom. Next we turned our attention to the front wall of the wet room, putting in a top plate and then more wood for wall studs and the door frame. Ichi has spent hours studying diagrams of the door to figure out the correct positioning for the door frame. We want the door to be snug because it's a wet room, but not too snug, and the space inside the door frame needs to accommodate the door, the tile plus the bond and the waterproofing membrane, plus a shower door seal which we've bought as an additional extra to go around the edge of the door. We've also put in blocking for the grab bar and the control panel for the bathtub.
はい、どうも、浴室、バスルームの中の、壁の下地がそろそろ終わりそうです。最も、大きかった挑戦は、その窓枠とこのドア枠のところですかね。タイルの厚みとボンドの厚みを計算して収まりを考えて下地を作ってきました。
This piece of wood is the same thickness as the plasterboard, so once the plasterboard is attached, it will be flush with the window frame. The tiles will go over the top like this. So, it's finally time to put the plasterboard up. This is a water-resistant plasterboard, which we will also cover with a waterproofing membrane. With the plasterboard up, it finally felt like a room and like we were starting to get somewhere. The final two parts of the framework are the doorstep and the ceiling frame. Ichi's making the doorstep from a piece of wood which we cut out from the floor in the other areas. It will later be waterproofed and tiled like the rest of the door frame. We've kept all of the plasterboard off the floor to make sure no water could seep up into the walls if it did get through our caulking. Moving on to the final section of this episode, we're putting up the ceiling frame. The key consideration with this task was to build it to house the ceiling fan. So diagrams were studied and lots of measurements were taken.
短いね。
短い？
失敗したな。Really? Let's
This one is here. Which one?
Yeah, that's supposed to be by the window. The other one is shorter.
The other one is shorter.
Yeah.
何やこれ。Okay, come to here.
Okay. The moment of truth. Will it fit? Ah, yes, it does. Ichi is attaching the ceiling frame to the main beam to take some of the weight. And that's it. All of the framework for the main structure of the wet room is complete and the walls are up. We have a room. In the next episode of building the bathroom will be waterproofing with a waterproofing membrane which we've imported from America. But before that, we'll be back with updates on the progress that we've made on the rest of the house.